Ba-da-ba-ba-bum. All right, senior home business family, how you guys doing today? We got Brittany and Matt in the house on a Wednesday for our live show. And so today we're going to talk about seniors, which we always talk about. Brittany, I always talk about assisted living and seniors, and we throw in some entrepreneurship topics in there every now and then just to, hey, you might be thinking about starting your own business. And if you are thinking about starting your own business, don't go buy a franchise, especially in this industry. I would encourage you not to do that. And I can talk to you about it by clicking the link down below and scheduling a consultation with me. But Brittany's got her own business in Missouri and Texas, and I've got my own business in California. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Matt Stafford. Two things about me: I'm not the Rams quarterback, which, because Brittany, I did not sign the $27 million contract like 3-4 years ago. And then I'm also originally from the East Coast. If you can pick up a country accent, I moved to California in 2001, and my kids all lost their accent if they had one. And good old dad just keeps his accent rolling here in California. So it's very interesting, Brittany, when I talk to people here in California and they don't know me, they kind of look at me like, you're not around here. I mean, you're from somewhere else. And I know. Mispronounced some things when I first came out here. It was calling water wooder. Brittany, what do you say? Do you say wooder or water?
Water.
Well, I was coming up with we went to Applebee's. It was the first restaurant we went, and said, "Yeah, I got to get a cold glass of water." And they're like, you want water? Okay. So anyway, that's enough tangent about me. But anyway, that's who I am. That's who Brittany is. And today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest fears seniors have about assisted living. So, we're in the business. We love what we do. We help seniors at no cost, no obligation. However, it is, Brittany, a very traumatic situation and time in the seniors' lives. And I want to go over 5 biggest fears. There's more than 5, but we're just going to hit on 5 today that ones that I see and maybe you identify with as well. We can tell some stories and why seniors feel this way. But I believe all 5 of these are legitimate. I don't believe these fears need to be excused. Like, just get over it. Maybe we told our kids at some point, or maybe as a kid we were told by our parents, just get over it, right? I don't think that's a good approach with seniors. They are dealing with very these issues. I mean, these 5 things we're going to go over today. So, but let's get into the first one, Brittany. Loss of independence. That is the biggest one, right? I mean, that is the one out of all 5 of these. Well, I don't know, there's another one in there, but out of the 5, this is one of the top 2 for me. If I was to go into assisted living later on in life, I just feel like I've lost my independence. Now, we don't believe that because there's a lot of things that you gain from going to assisted living. So talk about that, Brittany, a little bit, maybe the struggle a senior has with loss of independence versus some of the things they can gain when they are in a community.
I think the thought of leaving their home usually comes with sometimes losing your car, losing the routine that you typically had for sometimes 50 years if they've been in that home that long. So their change is scary. So they're thinking, I go to assisted living, that word is scary, assisted. It sounds like if I didn't know anything about it, I would think they're losing independence too. So I think the fear just on the name alone makes them think they're going to lose their independence. Sometimes, usually, when you go to assisted living, there's no need for a vehicle anymore. If there is, it's probably very limited, just running to the bank or the corner store or whatever that looks like. So they're losing so much during this move. They feel their routine. They're used to making meals in their kitchen or whatever that looks like, again, for sometimes 50 years. So they're scared. They're scared of the independence loss. They're scared that maybe this community is going to tell them what to do, when to do, all that stuff. All of these misconceptions of assisted living come into play. And that is probably the number one, like you said, pretty close to the number one concern, not only for seniors, for their families too. We can kind of probably go into that too. All these apply to also the family, that they're scared their loved one's going to lose their independence too. But what they gain is actually more independence, in my opinion. They are getting assistance where they need it so they can still be independent. Assisted living steps in where they can no longer be 100% independent, but actually makes them be more independent because they can get some more help. So for example, if they can't shower on their own, well, they can come in and just buffer that, but they can still leave when they want, go to eat breakfast whenever they want. I mean, there's so many ways that they can still have their same routine, keep their independence, but get support. Because if they don't get support and then something happens, then they won't have independence. So it's kind of like a catch-22, but they really get the support to be more independent. They want them to only come into play when
Mhm.
they have to. Like, it's not like you are going to I don't know, I've heard people call it a prison, which is so heartbreaking. Like, I've heard so many
Yeah.
analogies on this when it comes to the independence, like, what, my mom can't leave when she wants, or, she can't come
Yeah, they probably think, and this is the way I would think if I was not in the industry, and I don't think this way, obviously, but
yeah,
I'm trying to put myself if in a place where, let's say, I was just doing something completely different than what I'm doing now. I would think they're going to a building, which that's probably where the encampment prison analogies come out, right? They're going somewhere and now they cannot leave, which is a fallacy because they can leave under supervision and proper protocols with the community, whatever they may be. It's not like they can come and go and just go to the grocery store or go to go to Starbucks or something like that. But they have a lot more freedom than people think. But I get the point. If I take my experience and knowledge out of this, that they're going to a building and they're going to a place where people are watching them. And it's kind of like, and I know they're being cared for. I'm just trying to throw myself into the arena of not knowing what I know. And I think that's where some of the comments come from. And I think because some people in the past, I mean, be fair, they've had a bad experience. Because again, not all communities are the same, right? And not all caregivers are the same, not all executive directors are the same, et cetera. So they've had maybe a poor experience or just a bad mishap. Somebody forgot something or whatever. And then that just gets communicated to a lot of people. It's kind of like the old telephone game back in the day, right? You tell one person one something, but you tell 100 people down the line, and the story ends up changing down the line at the end of the 100 people versus at the beginning. And the same with stories like this. It's no different when somebody tells a horror story and it maybe wasn't as bad at the beginning of the story, and then as it trickled down, the trickle down effect as went all the way down to these other people. Oh, the story just changed forms and then just went into something really, really bad, right? So that's probably where they get it at. But I totally agree with you. It's more of a support mechanism than it is losing your independence. So you think about maybe dad at home by himself, and he can't shower, as you gave an example, by himself. He maybe has a hard time making his own food or anything like that, or maybe just goes without because he just has a hard time getting off the couch. And the very thought of going into the kitchen and making something is kind of like, okay, well, I'll just wait until later, And so their diet's really not as good as it can be in the community, where you got 3 square meals a day. You got snacks in between. There's plenty of support throughout the shower and all that kind of stuff. So I totally get it from where we are. Brittany is in the business. I'm just kind of throw the devil's advocate out there in terms of maybe somebody's not in the business. So they are going to a building, but I would think of it in terms like this. If you're out there and you're struggling with the very thing I just said, by going to a building, going to prison, you think of in terms of your level and going to a community. And it's a safe place. It's a place where they'll establish new friends and new adventures. I know within the building and maybe sometimes without, depends on how ambulatory they are and get around. There's plenty of these communities. They have their own bus and they go certain places. They go out to eat together. They go to the zoo together. All these kind of things. So you're losing independence, maybe, but I don't know. I think this, in my estimation, viewpoint, I think the support outweighs the lack of independence because it provides safety and all these different things you can do. And I think it actually prolongs a senior's life a lot of times if they're in the right community because of the overall feeling they get. They get purpose. Like they wake up because now they got new friends, new activities, new things, and something to do. Where if that same senior is in their house all alone and it's typically dark. I remember my grandmother. Now this is me as a teenager, back when. So some of it's a little fuzzy, but some of the stories were after my granddad had passed away on my mom's side. My grandmother downsized before she went to the assisted living. I told you guys a story about that because that's my first introduction to assisted living was going to where she went. And I didn't even know it was assisted living. I just thought it was a new place, and I knew it was just like it looked a lot better than her previous place. But she downsized from her house to like this duplex kind of area. And but I remember going over there a couple of times. It wasn't a lot. A couple of times went over there for to take something to her or whatever from my mom. And I remember the place always being dark. You know, the lights were never on. It was just dark. TV was always on. And she typically, the times I saw her was typically like in her bathrobe or like her what do you call those things, Brittany? They're like
Like the
90
nightgowns.
the nightgown kind of thing. Yeah. So typically kind of like that. So you take her and what I remember as a teenager to now the assisted living place that she graduated to. Oh my gosh, the place was well lit up. The food was probably a lot better because she really was not motivated to cook. She was seemingly dressed in regular clothes versus the nightie or the nightgown all the time. The TV wasn't always blaring. Instead, she was actually participating in movie night every Friday, doing the popcorn and and enjoying herself. So I look at that. That probably added some years to her life. It gave her purpose for waking up. I don't know. Am I wrong? What do you think, Brittany?
I agree. I think it almost gives them more independence. I know that sounds silly with having support, but like let's just say, like you mentioned, someone's having a hard time getting, to the kitchen, like or whatever. I mean, now they're getting more in support to be able to go get 3 meals a day. If they go
Yeah.
on outing on the bus, maybe they couldn't do that if there was no caregiver or an activities director on the bus to take them to the movies or whatever that looks like. So I just think that they even get more independence. It doesn't sound like it. They're losing maybe a little bit, but maybe they were independent. If they're getting help, they weren't really independent to begin with. So it's kind of like it's just a hard thing. I think another thing too, just as a side note, what I hear a lot from seniors, from clients, from families, is that this idea of a nursing home, a lot of people have this idea of the locked nursing home. We've all been in them probably, your typical state ran. Does that feel more of like you're losing independence? I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different scenario, but for your assisted living, I think they have this idea that they are nursing homes. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with nursing homes. We all have them for a reason. They're in place for a reason. We need them. But if you're talking about assisted living alone, I think seniors are reluctant because they have this idea that it's, just a secured hospital bed, it just looks like not somewhere home. So I think that also, and in that instance, I can see if they've had a bad experience or if they've been in a nursing home, they think it's wow, like nursing homes, they usually get up at 6 o'clock every day. Like that, I would say it is a loss of independence, but again, they're there because people need a lot of care. So they're not bad. It's just a different environment. But I think seniors have the idea, assisted living, I would, and do you know the first year assisted living was put in place? I know it's been a long time, but like, I feel like it's gotten significantly more popular.
I want to say now, this don't quote me because this is strictly an educated guess on my end. I think it actually came about in the early 80s.
Okay.
That's what I think. Now, I'm basing that on, here's my educated guess premise.
Yeah.
I'm getting based as I was a teenager, and I knew my grandmother went to assisted living. So I think I was like 15, probably 16 at that point, because I remember driving over to her apartment or duplex before she went to assisted living. So that would have made me, that's 1985. So I would say maybe, let's go late 70s, early 80s. That's my guess. Someone check it out and put it in the.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I don't know.
I think it's like significantly got, like, I'm not sure that the seniors know. Like assisted living is not, from my experience, some of these seniors are, unless they've had a friend in one, but like they typically didn't place their parents in one. It's not like they know about it. So I think that's part of it too. The loss of independence is they're reverting back to a nursing home.
Yeah, yeah. They're reverting back to a nursing home that is used interchangeably with senior living, which is not synonymous, but I get it. Again, if you're not in the industry, I'd probably call it a nursing home back in the day. So, yeah, it's just knowing the right thing. And so, this loss of independence, I think it could be a cultural thing too.
Yeah.
We can kind of get into that. It's not one of the five, but I think we can kind of throw that in there too. Like certain cultures would never do this. Certain ethnic groups would never do this. In 1,000 years, mom may need tremendous amount of care. They will go out of their way to have maybe in home care, home health, come by and take care of what they can't. But they're a firm believer in taking care of family. My wife and I have had a conversation about this multiple times over. My wife is Hispanic, and I'm about as white as they come. So I tease about this because it's my own race, it's my own gender, or the gender, I forget gender, it's males, but just my own race. But Hispanics typically will take care of their own. White people tend to put their people up in communities. And it can be perceived as the second thing we're getting to is being forgotten or abandoned. And I think if it's the transition is not done right, the senior has every right to feel forgotten and or abandoned. But if it's done correctly, meaning that it's a joint thing and they're involving the senior in the decision-making process as best you can. I understand there's different elements and areas of this, but there's some gray area definitely. But involve as much as possible. And then the support being there in terms of when you are the seniors moving, you're moving right along with them, not in this thing, but you're kind of helping them move. You're there. There's regular visitation, so you get rid of the whole thing of being forgotten. But I think that's where some people would think about that. I remember when one day, Josh and I put our senior home business on the street on hold for a little bit because this guy right here cannot handle the cold. And I hate being out there freezing my butt off. We're walking around trying to get people, and all they're doing is trying to get in their car. They're trying to get warm. Hey, excuse me. So, but I remember this one lady we talked to, and she would never do this in 1,000 years. And she had her mom right next to her. Her mom was a senior. Her mom needed a certain level of care. And she just went on and on how much she takes care of her because her mom took care of her. That's the way they always do it in their family. So I think, that's a cultural thing. But let's get back to the forgotten and abandoned piece. How can we help seniors not to feel that way? Because that is a very real emotion, right? That's not make believe. That's something that's not just conjured up. I mean, I'm sure all different personality types, people can have a pity party or whatever, but I think that's really legit. I mean, if they feel like they're being just dropped off somewhere, and then the visitation from the family is next to none, they could feel abandoned, I would think.
I agree. I mean, I think the main thing, if we're talking about family, is to get in. It's pretty cool because a lot of the communities have a lot of opportunity to get involved. So like you said, make them a part of the process as much as you can, whether it be probably maybe not choosing the place, but moving in, making sure their home, their new apartment feels like their home, making sure they have everything they need, going to activities, getting them involved. Talking with the staff there to make sure everything's going correctly. And, I don't get a lot of that. A lot of the clients that I work with are overly involved in a good, positive way. So I get the opposite. I think a lot of families are very involved from what I've experienced, but I know there's some families that aren't, whether it be, we're kind of working with the sandwich generation. They might still be raising kids. I have plenty of clients that still have kids in high school that are in basketball and wrestling, and they've got practice, and it's so hard because I get it. They're taking care of kids. They're also trying to care for their parents. But, just encouraging, I do think good communities encourage visits. Like they really do involve family. Come for dinners, come for activities, bring people in. I mean, whether the grandson is in the band, bring them in to play the violin, stuff like that. So I think, tips obviously to give to families is to be involved, but it's a very valid fear. I don't know from your experience. I haven't experienced a lot of this. I get completely the opposite, which is an amazing thing, where they're really involved. But I think just finding a balance, because you hear horror stories that, Miss Mary, her son dropped her off and we haven't seen him since.
Yeah. I think too, it has a lot to do with the relationship they have with their parents.
Sure.
I think I told you before, and I'll say it's worth repeating on this channel. It's only happened to me twice since 2018 when I started my own business, but it has happened twice, and I'll never forget it. There's been 2 occasions where someone told me they didn't care where their loved one went. They didn't care. They just make it as cheap as possible. And really, in neither situation was a money thing. It wasn't like there was no money on the table to be had to help. It's just they had such a poor relationship with their parent. They didn't care where they went. And I can only imagine in those two situations, which I don't know, I didn't ask them, I didn't want to follow up with that question, but I can only imagine that that senior probably felt abandoned, forgotten. Because if they had that kind of relationship on the front end going into the situation, in the situation, it's not getting any better.
Mhm.
Now, it might be some sort of season of regret after the parent passes away, but probably during that time, they're like, good, I'm glad he's out of the house. I'm glad, and that's sad. The last days of your life, you're feeling forgotten and abandoned, and that's not good. So let's get into some good news. I know forgotten and abandoned, but let's get into adjusting to a new environment. And this can be tough, but I think let's focus more on the positive. I notice a lot of negative adjusting to the environment, how they fit in, the new friend thing. It's not as always easy as we make it out to be, and are they going to be get used to the community's cooking and the schedule and all that stuff. But I think there could be a level of excitement to a new environment. It's almost like treat it like no one likes to move. I'm maybe speaking out of turn. Maybe some of you guys out there and like to move. I don't like to move. I just moved. Brittany just moved not long ago. And for me, I hate it. I hate the whole thing. Even though we hired people to move us, I still hate the move. I still hate the change of address. I still hate to now know where I'm going. I don't really know the streets as well as I knew in the other neighborhood. It's just like I hate all of it. But the environment now is, it's a lot more exciting for us. And I think that's somewhat equivalent to seniors when they're in a community. I think there could be some excitement in that. Am I right or wrong with that?
Oh, definitely. I think again, the communities are all different. I think, again, they do a good job. They have like a resident, what do they call them? The ambassadors. They like to show their apartment and take them to dinner. Like there's really fun stuff. I always say like the holidays is a side note, but I love when people move during the holidays because it's so fun. It's so exciting. Everybody's happy for the most part. But it's just really cool. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to be excited about, more than like take out all the negative care stuff and all that not fun stuff. But even going to dinner to meet friends, they really do enjoy it. Even getting excited about what's for dinner for the night. Like they love to look at the menu and circle what they like. It's a really neat experience. I also want to make a comment too. I can genuinely say this after I've helped hundreds and hundreds of families. Everyone thinks it will be worse than it is. This adjustment period, everybody predicts that it will go worse than it does. I can also confidently say, not saying we haven't had road bumps, it all works out. For the most part, it all works out. I think even the senior, the family, on a positive note, it almost always go better, especially with, I'm thinking memory care. I don't know if you can relate to this. Usually memory care, they're like, there's no way. Like this is going to be horrible. The adjustment's going to be so bad. I've had some pretty tough cases and they have came out better every single time. Like the transition, there's so much positive to it. Like there's so much involvement. They're not sitting next to the TV anymore for 12 hours a day. They're playing bingo. They're eating bananas, watching like the Western shows. Like they're doing things. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. I really like the idea of being excited. And I think if you're in our business, talking to families about talking to their loved ones about all of the positive and leave out this scary new environment, I think really helps. It gets them excited.
Absolutely. And that's the power behind giving an effective tour. And like when you first visit the community, because you're right, the average person is going to have some fears, going to have some concerns. Is dad going to be that well taken care of? Are they going to forget about him? Are they truly going to give him his medication? Or are they just going to jot it down on the chart and really not do it? There's a trust element. And one of the big things, I can give you a pro tip, you guys out there, and Brittany will, I believe, will second this. Outside of all the different things we do to have the 3-step qualifications of a community and all the things we teach in Senior Placement Institute, but you can really, when you do a tour, get the vibe of the communities you're walking around. How are the seniors responding to the staff? A lot of seniors, do they have a smile on their face? Do they feel at home? No, it doesn't mean it's going to be a circus every time you go there, right? You're not in Disneyland. And what I mean by that is, I know, kind of getting off the topic here a little bit, but as far as tours, kind of going with that, Brittany, is that, communities will stage a tour, right? And they'll have multiple things going on. But I think the misconception when families go into a tour, they think there's an activity going on all the time. I see this with care homes a lot, because they go into a care home and let's say 3 residents are bedridden. two are in a wheelchair, and there's an empty room, obviously, and they're going to be the sixth person there. Well, they go there and they're like, there ain't nothing going on. Well, there's three people in a bedroom. They don't get out of bed. And there's two people in wheelchairs, and I don't know what they're doing at the moment. They might be sleeping at the moment. So that's a whole nother story for another day for care homes and communities, when the timing of tours are very important, right? But for families, you just want to, as your loved one's adjusting to a new environment, make the adjustment even before you get there. If you are able to take the resident, which I know sometimes you can't, because it hasn't happened, a great percentage of my residents either. But if you're able to take the resident there ahead of time, that's great. If not, do some sort of pictures, video with your loved ones so they can actually see. But definitely, as the kids, the adult kids, or the person involved with the decision-making process, please go and visit the community and get the vibe, walk around. More than just questions, just kind of like as you're walking, if you encounter a few residents, talk to them. They're people. That's what I do. You'll get a lot of information. Not that you're trying to interrogate them, just ask them how their day's going. Hey, it's good to see you. They're walking into the, maybe it's a little bit of a room where they have some activities, and they're walking in there. They're going to the dining room, or they're just going to the library, whatever it may be. It's like, let's say I saw somebody going to the library. It's like, hey, getting that read on, man. How many books you reading a week? It's kind of like, oh, I don't know. And you'd be surprised if that person is an avid reader. They're going to tell you all kinds of stories. So anyway, that's kind of adjusting to the new environment. But I would definitely encourage families to be patient as well. It's going to take time. I see it, Brittany, at times, and it fluctuates, I know, but usually about 3 to 4 weeks, an adjustment period. Thinking again of yourself. How long does it take you to adjust if you move to a new area, a new place? You're on vacation for 2 weeks. I mean, you go to an Airbnb or you go to a nice hotel, whatever. You don't know, you're not acclimated to everything that's there. I mean, it takes a little time to make an adjustment. So the fourth biggest fear, I believe, Brittany, is that a senior struggles with is decline in quality of life. I see that a lot. I not say I see it. I'm more sense it a lot. It's not so much that people tell me this, but I really kind of sense that it's the decline in quality of life. Like, I'm moving here now, my quality of life is not going to be as good as it once was. Their seniors are typically looking in the rearview mirror, past, the stories, the good old days, and now it's all downhill from here. Doesn't have to be that way. I know we all decline, we all eventually pass, but it doesn't have to be that in your mindset. So speak to us, Brittany, a little bit about maybe why a senior struggles with this area of declining of quality of life.
Yeah, again, probably the word alone, assisted living, is scary. There's the clinical aspect of it. They probably feel as though now they have caregivers, and now it feels like a decline. Now, again, we could go on the positive side of things. If they were already, for the most part, at least who I work with, people that are moving to assisted living, it's a need, not a want, usually. So they might see it as that they're going to decline going to this community. They're in a 500 square foot room. They don't have a backyard anymore. They're not looking at the golf course anymore, whatever they had before. Maybe they had a 3,000 square foot home before. And now they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to this tiny little room to go, everything's going to decline. Now, they could have probably only been using 500 square foot of their 3,000 square foot home. That's usually the case. But I think it's the big move. I think that the care staff alone could mean that, oh my gosh, my life is declining. I have to have care now. But again, usually when they are looking for assisted living, it's a need. They probably needed this help, in my experience, way before we're actually moving to assisted living, or maybe a little bit before. So I think their perception of just the whole transition, going to a building, going to kind of that same loss of independence, like you're making this transition somewhere. I've had people say straight to my face, I'm going there to pass away. Like, I've heard things like that. I'm going to an old folks home. I've had a 98-year-old woman tell me I'm not old, So I think,
I like that. I love hearing that. I'm not old.
I'm not old. I don't want to be around all these.
I'm telling you, that is a mindset thing. That lady at 98 years old has not only probably a sharp mind, because she's learned so much and a lot of things, but her mindset in the sense that it's a perception. And she's like, I'm not old. I mean, she might be thinking of who's the oldest person in the Bible, Brittany? I don't know. Was it Methuselah? 969 years of age. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Something like that. She might have a mindset, hey, if somebody back in the day lived to 969 years of age, I'm only 98. I mean, that is so. Anyway, I'm sorry, y'all. I love that.
Like when I talked to that specific resident, I mean, that was a total, like, if I go here, my quality of life is going down the drain, because it was her mindset. So everybody's different, but I do just think the whole experience, the caregivers, the small rooms, if we're going, I don't want to go on the negative side of things, but they just feel like that they are going to decline. Even some families, that is a huge hump that if we're getting over we're working with adult children. I think personally, the decline in quality of life and the loss of independence, those are two that are really hard to get over. Like, they have a hard time accepting if my mom goes to assisted living, she's going to thrive. They look at it as she's going to decline.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Okay, let's get into the fifth one, financial concerns. This one is on the front door and the back door. This is what I mean by that is this is a front door issue. Financial concerns. Can I even get into the community? Do I have enough saved up? Do I have long-term care? What other resources they may have that are out there? And then I believe seniors struggle with, is my level of income, money, resources sustainable? On the back door, how long can I stay here? Like, will my money ever run out? And that is a big fear. I think the latter is worse than the former, only because you're already there, and it's the fear of losing something. Like, if it's not sustainable, then, oh no, I've got to move again. Where am I going to move now? I just got used to this place. I like this place now. I've made some new friends. Now I've got to move somewhere else that's not as nice that I could afford because my money's running out. I think that's a bigger fear than the front end. But speak to some financial concerns. I mean, what are families typically saying? Besides, it's too high, assisted living. I mean, I get that all the time. Assisted living is too expensive. Matter of fact, pro tip here, man, I talk to families. One of the first things I'll say outside the introductory kind of part is like, hey, assisted living is ungodly expensive. I totally get it. It just is. That's almost verbatim what I say almost all the time, because it's ungodly expensive. But speak to us about the financial concerns when families say, okay, once I get mom into the building, I mean, I get some people that actually do the math, and they go, okay, mom's got 11 months, mom's got 3 years, mom's got whatever. And that's got to be stressful, I think, on the senior. Let's say they do. Let's use this from that example. Let's say they have enough money to move into a community, and now they have enough resources to last 3 years, 36 months. What do you think that senior is feeling every month that goes by?
Stress. I mean, that is a hard thing. We don't, when I talk to families, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the future holds. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think, like you said, the back end is harder than the front end. The front end, we can maybe make it work. We can pull from selling a home or whatever. Maybe we can make it stretch. But I mean, I talk to families and talk to even, of course, the other students that we talk to in the Senior Placement Institute that, running the numbers is important. You have to know if he or she only has 3 years, what is the next step? What is the solution? You have to talk to the right people about that too. You can run numbers, here's my numbers right here. Like, you see all my numbers circled, you can run numbers all day long for people, but money doesn't
your numbers are like mine.
It's so bad. Yeah.
I should have been a doctor back in the day.
3190. So I'll just give you an example. 3190, this senior brings in 3650. So we're running, how much is her medication going to cost her? She's got $30,000 in the bank. Like, we're trying to come up with all these numbers. I think it's doable. Luckily, when you work through someone like a placement agent, if families do, they actually do a spin down to basically a Medicaid program and assisted living. So there's ways to look at it, but the fear is terrible. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for the families too. I mean, and I've had families that have 500,000 have the same fear that somebody has 35,000. I mean, it is a lot of numbers. It's a lot of stress, and it is probably, again, the hardest part to get into, but then it's also the unknown of the back end. I mean, we could look at it from so many factors. What if somebody has 6 years, but in 3 years they need skilled nursing and it doubles the cost? Like, we don't have a crystal ball. So that's a really, really hard, and it's a huge fear. as soon as you start spending it, it's so expensive, it's going to drain. Like I've had families have $1 million and I start running the math and it's for a couple, that's unfortunately not
$1 million today is nowhere near like it was back when I was a kid.
And for 2 people in assisted living at $5,000 a piece.
I don't know if you can actually, off the record here, I don't even know if you can actually retire on $1 million.
I don't think so.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess you retire on people do it, but I mean, I don't know if you can actually retire comfortably $1 million like you could back. I think 10 million is the new million. I think that's, but I know it's off the record. We're talking about seniors, but I just, but financial concerns, and then the concern of the community raising the rates, and I don't mean that in a bad way, guys. Communities don't hate on me on this. I'm not trying to bash you for raising rates. I mean, understand cost of living. Things go up. Prices and things like that. So I totally get it, but that's something the senior or the family has to factor in. So if they are that close, like yours was around 3,100, something like that. 36 was the.
Yeah, we got like a $400 and something difference per month.
Okay, so $400. That's not a lot of money to play with, because all they got to do, what's 3% of 3,100, right? I don't know what that is.
I don't know. But no, it's a couple of years of probably increases, and you hope Social Security goes up. It's tough.
$93. That's what it is. Okay, so $93 doesn't seem like it's nothing, but if you only got a $400 wiggle room, then medication goes up. My mom was
3% the next year, then she'll be priced out eventually.
Yeah, my mom was freaking out the other day because she's got these. I don't know the name of the pill, but it's for blood thinning. She had a heart attack about 6-7 months ago, so she has to take this pill, I guess, the rest of her life. And she was paying $20-some a month for this pill, and she has to take it every day. So, but then she was told. And she didn't equate the start of the new year deductible, and that's really what it was. But she was told that it was going to go from $20-some a month to $200-some a month, like $210. It was a big, big increase. Now I told her, don't worry about it. Hey, if that's the case, let's do some investigative work on it. Let's make some calls to the doctor, things like that. But I want you stressing over it. I got the pill. Don't worry about it. I'll pay it. But she goes, no, son, I don't want you paying. I want you paying. I said, well, let's look into it. So she looked into it, and what it was her deductible. Mm-hmm. Now she gets that pill for free throughout the rest of the year. So I just paid her deductible, and then she gets it for free. But the reason I mentioned that story is, so not only the raise of rent in the community, but medication, all the different things that go up just because that's the way things typically do, right? They go up. So if that's the case, I mean, that $400 is going to go by in no time. So the family is going to have to make a decision, I think, if there's no other resources, to say, hey, we got to chip in. And in their case, they might only be chipping in a couple $100 a month.
There's 5 of them. Wait, she's got 35,000 cash. That was a decent situation. So she has 35,000 cash, and then 5 kids. So they were like 200. So that's one of those where we just had to figure it out. Yep. She was coming from independent living, paying $3,400 a month, draining that kind of 35 that was in there. Yeah. So we got her in assisted living for less than independent living.
Nice. Good job, Brittany. Great job. All right, you guys. Hopefully that was helpful in talking about the 5 biggest fears seniors have about assisted living. I'm sure there's more than just the 5 we mentioned. If you're watching this video live right now, or you're watching a recorded version, go ahead and jot down in the comment section another fear that you maybe your family has experienced or you've heard about from a senior. You would love to hear about it. And it's just not just knowing about the fear, but it's also how to work through the fear, right? I mean, like anything in life, we're going to be fearful of a lot of things, and it takes faith, it takes confidence to get through these things. And maybe the person on the other side, i.e. in this case, the senior, doesn't have the confidence and the faith to get through. And that's where the support of the family needs to come in to help that individual be there as a level of support. So the first one, like we talked about, loss of independence. So maybe if they're struggling with that, you want to be there as a level of support. And not only the community will do that as well, but you'll be there so they won't feel like they lost their independence, right? And so they're able to do certain things. So anyway, work with that. I hope it was helpful for you guys today. We'd love to talk to you about the Senior Placement Institute. If you like, you can drop down and click a link and watch a free webinar. You can talk to me. You can do whatever you want to do. But We really enjoy speaking to you guys about this topic today. So until next time, God bless.